What's happening? Steve Mayeda from the TSL podcast, the podcast to be the better man. And today we got Mr. Anthony Johnson, a force of nature when it comes to vision, perspective, and drive. He is the founder, creator, CEO of the 21 Convention. We should all know what that is if we're a male looking for improvement in dating, fitness, relationships, just overall self-improvement with a male perspective. He has gotten the best speakers from around the world to unify on a single stage, bringing you an awesome message of improvement that is based on a pretty powerful vision and ideal. And that is the coolest thing about this podcast. One of the first times ever you're going to hear Anthony, the creator of this, speak on how he manifested this, the power behind it. And man, I know him very well. I'm the host of the 21 Convention that's upcoming in 2014, and I was even blown away by this man's passion and drive. It's something that we should all have a little bit rub off on us and see where it takes us. That all being said, this podcast is brought to you by The Sexual Life, TSL. That's my company. If you're looking at improving your life in any way, especially when it comes to dating, sex, connection, communication, if you're a guy in sales to a guy that just wants to meet better women, check out The Better Man's Guide to Dating and Lifestyle. It's exactly what it says it is. It's an audio program that was created by TSL members. That's how powerful it is. If you are going to meet the best people in your life, you've got to be the best version of you. So check it out. There's probably a link down here somewhere. And without any further ado, check out Mr. Anthony Johnson. You're going to be impressed. What's happening? It is Steve Mayeda with the TSL podcast, and today we have Anthony Johnson, founder, CEO of the 21 Convention, 21convention.com. If you don't know what that is, man, I'd be pretty surprised if you're involved in anything that has to do with me or a message that I carry. I mean, it has been... You've got to know about the 21 Convention, which is basically a convention and an amazing YouTube channel that has just tons of content on how to be a better man, basically. Anything from health, fitness, philosophy, of course, dating. What else they got there?
It centers around specifically on 21 University, where all the videos get posted.
Mm-hmm.
It's philosophy, it's culture, which is like dating, sexuality, male studies or men's rights. And then health, and then electives is sort of like independence, like you mentioned a little while ago. Independence would center on self-defense, entrepreneurship, and anything in the future that's like sort of miscellaneous, but still important to a man's life.
Yeah.
So philosophy, culture, health, independence.
Let's go back to some history here. I met you in, I think, 2008, like in May or something.
Yeah, that's right, 2008.
And so the first convention was actually in 2007, which is the only one that I didn't speak at. I didn't speak at that one and Sweden, but
that's right.
I still spoke at a 2010 convention.
But
man, you were how old when you started this thing?
I started organizing it at 17. The first guy I actually invited, I was 17, was Brad P.
Really?
You know him?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a little workshop down in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, a bunch of the guys from Top Layer went down there. And I was just some stuttering, 17-year-old kid. And I'm trying to get him to speak, and he's like, what is it? When? No. He just like, kind of like you did a little bit when I talked to you. You were like, what? No, what? Until I was like, sin speaking, and you're like, oh, sign me up. Where do I sign?
That's so weird because John, I thought, only spoke because I was going too. But Brad.
He spoke as Mihai spoke the year before. Yeah.
That's so weird. Brad, I know personally from Brad, who's a really good guy. Yeah, there's like very few coaches that I'm like full-fledged with. But if you wanted to learn just straight like pick up for what it is, he's actually an awesome coach who has like a awesome trainer. He's a really good dude. But he never speaks with anything that's videoed because he has another life.
I guess so.
But
it's interesting. I haven't thought about that in a while. That he is the first person ever invited to speak. I'm pretty sure.
That's so crazy. But man, you were 17 years old. Okay, when I was 17 years old, I was actually, I was getting kicked out of high school and going into rehab. But when you were 17 years old, you fucking you started this crazy thing that is now massive. Like what people don't realize is when it comes down to the 21 convention, a lot of people do not know you. And I have seen you from basically 2008 on take this thing and go crazy with it. And I mean, it's nuts. And we've emailed back and forth. We've talked back and forth. You know, we've become pretty good friends. And
Hosted my wedding, man. You're like
yeah,
part of the wedding party.
I
Yeah.
emceed your wedding. But
Yes.
the coolest thing about it is in this time, I think I was 30 when I spoke at your convention, and I'm 36 now. So
Damn. Time goes that.
6 years, man, 6 years. And there's even more
Wow.
about that initial convention that's pretty like important to me. But the the thing about that is I have seen somebody. You said this to me because you were saying, hey, you know what you do with TSL, like you have like a lot of integrity in it. Dude, you are the definition of integrity. Anthony Johnson, serious shit, because guys
Thanks.
listening and watching this, you may watch his videos, you might go on and see Mark Sisson speak or Doug McGuff, or maybe you watch like who's a really like AFC Adam talk or Gambler
James
or whatever.
Marshall.
James Marshall, like one of, but
The James Marshall.
you might see one of these like big name speakers speak at your event, but they don't know how instrumental you were in making that happen and how much you demanded for that to be access for everybody so that people could exchange information. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And where this came from, and Zuzu is a member of my mastermind group, although normally I call him by his real name. But he's like, man, it's the 2006, 2007 top layer. We created some of the best guys. You know, Sock comes out of
Yep.
there. Man, there's even a
Tons of speakers from the convention that came from
yeah,
there.
yeah. But even crazier is like the convention that I was at, 2008. You
Well,
really took it up to another level. Go ahead.
even you are a product of Top Layer in a indirect sense because you
Totally.
came and spoke to Top Layer, and that's how I met you.
I didn't know that
And Sin.
I was the only person that, like, I think Zuzu really pitched on top layer because I did a stack
Yeah.
for this guy Nectar. We'll use their handle
Oh
names.
yeah, I know that guy, dude.
Hey, and
Yeah.
you know who Vlad is from
Yeah.
there is actually doing something with me now, and
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But top layer is like most layers when it comes to seduction are horrible. But
hmm
this layer actually, you know, it created like the same typical pickup crazy mofo type stuff. But this layer actually created a bunch of men who are bettering their lives. It's crazy. You know, it's nuts. But
Yeah.
and it was run right, and it was basically because of
Zuzu.
Zuzu. It started with this guy Big Wave, who is also one of the,
Dude, I never met Big Wave, but I heard he came to the 2011 convention.
yeah, he was my
And
guest.
oh, I didn't even meet him, dude.
Oh yeah,
People were saying he was there, and I didn't even meet him.
he's a
I
great guy, man.
don't
This
think I did.
guy totally changed his life, and I actually
Wow.
did a podcast with him, and it's just audio. I should probably do a video one with him if I can. But he's
This
like a
guy,
total entrepreneur, man. He got total story. Got divorced, had everything like go wrong in his life, and just didn't have access to a bunch of stuff. So he wanted to start this top layer thing, and get involved in it. But he wanted to be about overall men and whatever. As an entrepreneur, ended up making his money, becoming really successful. I mean, he's a guy that I'll talk to about business where it's like, wow, how did you do that? It's amazing. And is able to really change his life and create a forum where he could change a lot of other people's lives. But man, you actually did that. You probably did it
yep.
the most with the 21 convention and having a forum to change people's lives in such a massive way. If and you also redefined for me. This is like the crazy thing. Again, I'm 36, but I look back and solely to Anthony Johnson. There's a lot of people who I really respect for different areas of my life or whatever. But if ever I want to look at integrity or finding the right message, I think back at you and I think back at that at the
Thanks,
2008
man.
convention, and I think back at like some of the other ones at little different times. But 2008 convention, you
Yeah.
were in a bind.
That was the
You
worst time, definitely.
you and I've been there too. Like I know how to I just made a email about this, so I'll probably make a blog post. I know how to make money, but I don't know how to manage things right, and it can screw stuff up.
Yep.
And 2008 convention, you were like, shit, man, I have all these people
I was in a
here.
bad spot, man.
I hired this awesome camera guy because my vision, this is before videos were online. You hadn't really started the YouTube channel, or if you had, it was really small.
Yeah, it was tiny, and most of the videos were hosted on a proprietary site from another company I partnered with.
Hmm.
The YouTube channel only had like a few things on it, like the trailer and maybe one or two other things.
Yeah.
So I should have done it, dude, from YouTube from the start. God, dude, that was a bad decision not to go with YouTube from the very beginning. Even though you couldn't upload full length videos then,
Hmm.
I should have put it out like I do now with the parts, and that was business wise, that was a bad decision. I'm making up for it now, but if I had done that, dude, the channel would be like more than twice the size that it is now at 50,000. It would have
Yeah.
100,000 plus subscribers. It would
Yeah,
be like,
but whatever,
yeah,
man. Nobody knew that
could
then.
yeah, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Yeah,
Yeah.
YouTube was new back then.
But you did something that people who are trying to just make money and do crazy stuff with YouTube, but you did it all organically. You did it all yourself. And
Mhm.
at that 2008 convention, man, you were basically like it was like 5 grand for all the video stuff or something like that, right?
More
This
than a
is
little bit more than that, yeah.
yeah, okay, you remember, but
Oh
you were
yeah.
like, "Fuck, man, I don't have enough money for the convention room for the video, blah 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 blah. How can we do it?" You sold your fucking car to do that.
Wait, I sold my car twice to fund the convention, two cars.
You like when I mean I remember it. You were it
Dude,
was
I even sold a boat. I had a boat that I had to sell eventually.
you
I
had a
didn't have to, but
boat?
I chose to. Yeah, I grew up on a boat,
Jesus,
man. I had a
wow,
boat since I was like 12 years old. It's a boat my dad bought me when I was a kid.
that's badass.
Uh, yeah, I was fortunate to get that, from my parents, but it was in my name, and then I just sold it a couple years ago and pumped it into the company just to
Yeah.
make sure everything continued to float right and work well.
So
Plus, it's expensive as hell to keep a boat.
how the hell did you do that, man? You're 17 years old and you had this vision, and what was the initial vision?
I wanted to create. Well, it was for me, so it's still about me and all about me in some ways. I do the convention because it's what I want to exist because it doesn't exist and I want it to exist and I want it to exist specifically for what I think is important to me and my values. So there's no other event like the 21 convention. People, speakers, and attendees say this all the time. There's nothing else like it out there. It's something Tim, a friend, said a couple years ago, one of the speakers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it started too. It started because I wanted to meet guys. That's why it was called the Under 21 Convention. I wanted to meet guys who were under 21. I was 17 at the time, who were good with women and had something to offer. I could maybe offer in return as well, but I wanted to meet guys just in general who were good, who were young. That seemed really relevant to me at the time. Whereas the top layer, all the guys were like 30, 40 years old. I couldn't like relate to them. And there was almost no one on there. Even letting me on the layers, usually didn't want to let me on because I was a minor. But I turned 18 like soon after, so he ended up being okay with it. But
Wow.
that's why I did it. I wanted to. It wasn't even necessarily a conference at the start. It was going to be like more like a meetup group, like a one-time meetup where like maybe 20 guys would fly down who were really good, and we'd have like this week or like a weekend or something where we just go out and learn from each other. But the minute I mentioned that on the Mystery Method forums, which is now Love Systems, it blew up. I just posted the idea. I talked about it with a friend who helped with the website and stuff early on, and then I posted the idea, and it got like dozens and like hundreds of comments within like days because people started. I think I don't know. It wasn't called Under 21 Convention, but the minute someone said that, or I said that, or however it went down, people were like, "Oh, it's going to be an Under 21 Convention," and like people just started like chewing on that. They're like, "It's
Yeah.
going to be amazing." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, sure it is. Who's going to do it?"
Yeah. Man,
Uh,
that's
so yeah,
no, but it's crazy because I remember that's how if I go and think back when John and I spoke in man, that was such a crazy weekend. Oh my God. That was so I was still I don't drink or do anything I do any drugs and actually the day I stopped was the day I spoke at the 2008 convention.
okay,
So that's actually my date of like no more like chemicals or whatever. I mean, I guess everything's a chemical, but no more
yeah,
like drug use or alcohol use in my body. But man, so it's really kind of a cool thing for me. But I remember I was so wasted, me and John, and we were staying in this hotel next to the hotel that we spoke at for the layer talk, right? It was like
Okay.
a Holiday Inn or something.
Well,
It
you know,
was
it's funny. The hotel you spoke at with John
that was the
was
original.
a hotel, yeah, for the
Yeah,
convention. You
yeah,
spoke like 100 feet from the first conference room, which is
yeah.
now I think the hotel's like closed down now or something. Like it's all done. It's all Florida went, people just go bankrupt and shit. So
Well,
yeah.
people go bankrupt everywhere in America, man. But
Well, especially that time frame though, like the housing crash and
yeah,
people started going belly up and
man,
shit.
that was a big time. Like 2009, 2010. It hit me in 2010 when everything business wise had to change because it was uh, like people just didn't have the same money that they had. You know,
Yeah.
it was just totally different. But so what changed? Because even from 2008 to 2009, I know a lot changed with you. You first were talking about you personally with some friends, basically. We're talking about health and fitness stuff, or maybe just health on the 21
Yeah.
convention, at the 2008 21 convention. And,
Hmm.
it had different views than you have now. But then in
Yeah. Totally different.
2009, it totally changed. Like, so
Yeah.
what changed with this vision? Like, how did you go from, wait, we want guys to learn about women? And I think this is really important because guys get in the dating industry and then they're like, we don't want anything to do with it. Whereas it's so great because it's all men talking about men stuff and nobody was able to transition it to total man stuff. Or they
Yeah.
completely denied the dating, seduction, pickup aspect of it and said, well, like, screw all that. That's all childish shit. Here's
Yeah.
like all this other, stuff to talk about that has to do with men. But you unified it. You're the only person I know that
Yep.
really did it. So what changed in 2009
Well,
to make it what it is today?
it's actually funny at the very end there, you mentioned unifying it. And that's something I've realized that I like a lot about what Steve Jobs did with Apple is he was always about unifying it and making it one thing and making it simple. And that's what I've done conceptually, I think, with the convention. So learning about human life at the 21 convention is always an integrated thing. It's not fragmented into multiple components, multiple parts, which is what Steve did with Apple in every product they touched. It's always like how to get everything into one thing without
Hmm.
compromising.
Hmm.
And that's what I've done to the T. That's why I loved reading about it with Steve. I was like, oh shit, this is amazing. It's exactly what I do. Um, but answering your bigger question about what changed, a couple things. Psychologically, big things happened that impacted me. My best friend died a few days after the convention, so he was like on his deathbed during the 2008 convention. He died of like a really rare type of cancer at 22. So, and combined with being, I
Jesus.
basically, I was effectively bankrupt at that point. I didn't ever declare bankruptcy, but effectively, like there was, thousands of dollars of debt and no money.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a, personally dangerous time for me and, stressful as hell. I had, the company that I loved that I'd built that was still young and I was young. I had never dealt with anything like that before. And then on top of, well, the convention was successful, but then being, absolutely broke and, indebted to a lot of people who were not comfortable with that and didn't sign up for that was really stressful and really taxing. And then my best friend dying was really stressful and really taxing.
That's
I
nuts,
never
man.
dealt. Yeah,
Yeah, keep going. I'm
I.
sorry.
It's okay. My grandfather died a few years before that, but I wasn't close to him. And other than that, that was the closest death. Well, my grandfather dying was the closest death I'd experienced. The relationship before that. So my best friend died. That was like huge. Like I had
Yeah.
no experience with dealing with that. And those two things I think made me grow up really fast. It's the reason people think I'm older than I am. I think a lot of the time, and I'm calm and focused on what I do, because that changed me, man. Those two things in tandem, probably 60-40, being like bankrupt or very close to it, and then my best friend dying. So 40 bankrupt, 60 friend, and that was just traumatic as hell, man. And for like the whole month, I would say the whole month of August of 2008 is when it really it transformed me or changed me for the better. I got depressed from it, but that depression, like very severe depression, I would say, it affected me in a very positive sense. So I was resilient. I didn't just confront it and do nothing with the trauma that I was experiencing psychologically. I grew from it tremendously. And that's why then going forward, I think I was able to encounter new ideas that were a lot better. So paleo and HIIT specifically that year. And then on top of that, incorporate all those things into a new company or the company itself that already existed that was then transforming, which you saw expressed when the 21 convention became the 21 convention from the under 21 convention.
Yeah. You would
Does that make
change the
sense?
name.
I
No,
just
it
tied a
totally
whole bunch
makes
of things
sense.
together, but
Man,
yeah,
so your buddy had passed away
yeah.
before the convention in
Right
2000?
after it,
Right
I saw
after.
him like a week before,
Wow.
and he was dude. He was like a skeleton. He was dying of cancer. Just it
Yeah.
was eating him alive.
Yeah. So you were going
And
through all of that when you were going through trying to organize all the speakers not showing up because
yep.
that 2008 time there it was like you had a lot of guys there that were unconfirmed and didn't show up,
Mm-hmm.
did show up, people complaining, all
That
that sort of stuff.
always. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. But at that time, yeah, anybody who's new to hosting an event, you're gonna run into that. Even to this day, like yeah, I have that sometimes, but
Yeah,
it's a lot less. Like Rob Wolf was confirmed for the
that's right.
2012
Yeah,
convention,
yeah,
which was a big deal. I had him, at the top of the list almost.
yeah,
Him and McGuff for that convention. And then, 14 days before the event, he drops just suddenly when he had confirmed twice before that. I didn't have
yeah,
any bad feelings about it, but it was still a surprise. Like this late in the game with doing the business, I was like, damn, I can't believe he dropped.
yeah.
And he had some reasons as to why, but still, like stuff like that happens. And less so, I think, as you get better at running the business and hosting events. um, so where was I going with this? Something you
Man,
asked?
just about the
Lost train of
change of
thought.
everything.
Yeah. So, well, yes, yeah. You were asking specifically about what I was going through, and yeah, it was interestingly enough when my friend was on his deathbed. Me and another friend who ended up hosting the convention in 2011 Orlando.
Chris.
No, Ermin.
Oh,
Close,
really?
close, close.
Ah,
Ermin, Chris, same thing.
Ermin.
Yeah, he
Ermin cried at your wedding, man. He was so moved.
did he?
There's
Did
something
he? I
like
didn't
when there's
see
this.
it. Oh
So
shit!
I'm pretty sure. Oh man, I was gonna take a picture, but it would have been like it would have been such an
Wow,
ass move. But
wow.
you saw I took pictures when we were sitting in the aisle. But
Yeah, 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 yeah.
man, I still gotta upload. Oh my god, I'm so sorry about that. But he was moved, man. Like when you were stating your vows, I was like, wow, this is some cool stuff. And he like lost his shit. And so you're talking about this big
Wow.
like Serbian dude, right? Or I'm sorry, Bosnian.
Bosnian. Yeah.
But
I wouldn't call him Serb.
yeah, yeah, I know.
I don't appreciate that.
But sorry, Armin, sorry. But
Yeah.
anyway, this huge guy, and that's that. But that's the power of it. I mean, you are this dude. I even said at your wedding where it's like selflessly. I mean, you sacrifice so much just to carry this message, and I almost want to say you never gave a shit about the money or tried to capitalize on it. You tried to do
Well,
it so you could sustain.
I don't call it selflessness. I actually call it the inverse. I call it selfish. But I understand how it looks like that, especially the sacrifice part, because I am, and as you've stated, I've made like huge trade-offs
Yeah,
that for most people would be maybe destructive, but for me they've been constructive.
yeah,
So when I sell my cars, two cars, some gold I had one year, my boat that I'd grown up with that I loved, that I'd taken care of really good over the years. These things look like sacrifices, but to me they were the proper trade-off to make at the
yeah,
time. A little bit sad to let him go. I didn't cry or anything, but yeah, I didn't want to sell my stuff. But I did because the higher value for me was the business and maintaining it. So it was for the self. For me, it was taking care of myself by taking care of my business and taking care of what's important to me.
man.
And so when I mean selfish, that's what I mean, and that
Let
is to me selfish.
let's talk about this because my friend
Sure.
Fred, he's a dude that is. There's even a connection with him in the 21 convention because I used to drive a lot. I used to drive from Texas to Florida to go
Mm,
speak, and I'd
I
stop at
remember
Fred's
that.
house in Alabama. In fact, an attendee, Justin from the 21 convention, is who introduced me to Fred. So pretty crazy. I mean, there's a lot of like influential stuff in my life, but Fred was this guy that was in a wheelchair. I call him the wheelchair Yoda, and just crazy dude, older gentleman, and he would say, "Oh man, everything's great, like oh when I had my stroke, it was the best thing that ever happened to me." And I'm just like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But he always had this great perspective, and he said, "You know what, Steve? 13 years ago, when I cleaned my shit up in my life and wanted to become a spiritual guy, he would, spiritual in the Steve sense, he'd swear a lot. But he said, I was
Gotcha.
selfish. I was selfish and I was a no good human being. 13 years later, this was some years ago, he's like, I am still a selfish being, but I'm selfish and I know who I am. And this was like monumental concept for me. But when
Mm,
you talk about knowing yourself, because that's even on your 21 Convention website,
absolutely.
self-actualization. What do you
Yes.
mean by that?
Well, literally, I mean, and this is not only literally what it means to me, but also what I mean when I say it. Self actualization is actualizing the self. So bringing the self into reality, specifically, and that would actualize actual, specifically meaning the highest vision of your own self in your own life, or the ideal vision of it, which to me is distinct too from perfectionism or a perfect self, which I don't think has a whole lot to do with reality, like this earth. So that's what I mean when I say it, when it's self-actualization, knowing yourself. Well, knowing yourself is a little bit different to me from self-actualization, but they're both kind of in the same direction towards loving yourself, knowing yourself, taking care of yourself, being selfish, being rationally selfish, which specifically limits you from doing things that are self-destructive or destructive to others, which I would believe is actually very directly related to doing damage to yourself.
Hmm.
So assaulting someone emotionally or physically, I think it's damaging to yourself in the first place. So even though it doesn't look like it's doing damage to yourself, it still is.
And where did you learn that from? Because this is a concept we could talk about a lot.
Yeah. I would say that in a distant sense, this was maybe a decision I made when I was very young, but I didn't learn it explicitly until much later. So it just happened to be. I don't know exactly what the roots of this are.
You didn't put it into
It,
application until life came
well,
along, huh?
I put in an application, I think, as I was growing up. Curtis, my friend who died, was he was actually instrumental in this probably because he was a little bit older than me. So he wasn't just a friend, he was almost like a bigger brother. Like we were really close. He was my best friend. And he was a little bit older and he was very selfish, but in a way that was pretty healthy. It wasn't like a lot of people are selfish, like they just fuck over other people and they damage themselves and just do whatever the fuck. It was purposeful and it was meaningful and it was in a large way rational, even though he was very young too. So I would say that because of him and maybe some other reasons too, that I just happened to make, uh, not in a very concrete sense, but I still made them right decisions in thinking and how to live life growing up. And then when I came into the right source of knowledge growing up, well, not sources of knowledge, and encountered the right ideas, I realized what I had been doing and that it wasn't just an accident and that I liked that and I wanted to pursue that even further. And that then led to things like Ayn Rand, things like Greg Swan more recently with the 21 Convention and in his work. So yeah, it's been just an evolution, and it hasn't always been either nonfiction. It's not just like some dry philosophical discussion where I just read what someone wrote that's like super long and drawn out. It also has a lot to do with fiction. So we were talking about Bleach earlier and like anime, and uh, I look for fiction that's selfish like this and that inspires me. And I think even from a young age, that's what I was really, really inclined to view and to experience. So then as I aged and I found nonfiction to think about this more deeply and more explicitly, that's what ended up cultivating or accumulating itself over time.
And
Does
then like
does that make sense? I feel like I'm just going off on tangents
yeah, it
here.
does in a very Anthony Johnson way, which is so this is actually the
Got it.
beauty of what goes on with you is you have all these ideals that are get pretty specific. And I'd say in the dating realm they're the least specific, but rather than you voice them, you found the greatest people who are capable to voice them. Voice
Hmm.
them. That's nuts. I mean, at 2010's convention, was that the one where Mark Sisson spoke?
Yeah, 2010 Florida. Hmm.
Um, everybody said that Doug McGuff's like everybody when I spoke there, uh, you know, uh, people would say, "Oh man, it's a good speech." I'd say, "Who's your favorite?" Right? And they'd say it would either be Doug's or Mark's. They were just like,
Hmm.
"Man, I was blown. I've never heard this stuff before. I've never heard about this." Primal paleo type lifestyle. I've never heard a doctor speak. I mean, that was the crazy thing. There
Yeah.
were these, so just to put it in perspective, I mean, really, you came from like pickup dudes are not necessarily the most together guys, right? And still to this
Yeah.
day, there's like all
Yeah.
sorts of craziness out birthed from that and found myself to be able
That's
to grow up in it. But the convention was so much a definition for that because it showed me how it translated. When it
Yeah.
stopped becoming about get, seek validation, all that sort of stuff, it and started to become about how can you improve yourself. This is
Yeah.
clearly something to improve yourself, and we can speak on stage and be adult about it and have a really powerful thing. That came, especially, I'd say, big time when I started to see those speakers come on, and even
Yeah.
2009. I mean, uh, when Drew Bay started speaking, and
Hmm.
people really, really had a big impression
Yeah. I
on
owe a lot
that.
to Drew Bay. It's really Drew Bay, meeting him in person at his house and then working out with him on the arts machine that he had at the time. That was instrumental in getting him to speak. And then when he spoke, that was huge in getting other speakers to speak. He was really, I have him to thank for that or permanently, because yeah, him speaking was just such a huge factor going forward in getting guys like McGuff and Bill DeSimone and Mark Sisson to speak. It made it like, because he lived in that area and we met and he trusted me, it made that link that then led into so many other different areas. And once it started, it now has never stopped.
Yeah.
I can get any speaker I want on those. Oh, not any speaker, but any speaker from any field. I can really invite,
Well, you
even if it's
actually
not.
at the Paleo FX Keith Norris's conference in Austin, Texas,
Yeah,
you had Dave Asprey approach you.
yeah. Him and Army Leggy, I think, worked with him at the time. I didn't even understand how their company was structured at the time. I thought they were both like owners of it. I think it's
Uh-huh.
just Dave. And yeah, they came up to me and started talking to me, and they wanted me to look at Bulletproof Coffee, which I love after the fact. But at the time, I barely knew who Dave was,
Yeah.
just a little bit, because Army had commented on my blog a lot, and so yeah,
Really?
they came up to
Wow.
me, and I don't think he works with Dave anymore, but they came up to me and yeah, we started talking, and then they wanted to speak, and I was like, all right, I got to think about it. And I looked at his site, and I was like, yeah, this is great. And then
Mm.
eventually, a couple months later, we signed on to speak, and he did.
Yeah, I
And
mean, and it was
it's
an excellent speech. At the
yeah,
2012 in Austin, that was freaking awesome. And then,
it does really well in viewership too. It's been killing it. It's been out for a few months, and it has like 50,000 already, which is
Jesus,
really
man.
good. Yeah, it's really good.
That's what I always wonder about these guys because I don't pay attention to the YouTube channel enough, but
I do.
you do. It's your channel, man.
Yeah,
But
I watch this shit like a hawk, man.
I'm like, man, 7,000 views for me, and then I'll look at like a guy like Dave Asprey or some other people, and it's surprising who gets views and who doesn't. Like,
Yeah,
I am surprised. Like early on, AFC Adam got mad views, or Adam Lyons,
yes,
but now not as much. And
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
like who else? Like James Marshall, he gets pretty substantial viewing, right?
He gets a lot, yeah. Even his new speech it just came out and is doing. It's got 12,000. It's been out for like 2 weeks,
Wow, wow,
so that's really
wow.
good.
Yeah, good for him.
It's a really good talk too. So it's exciting to see that.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's from Melbourne.
yeah, the main keynote. The other ones do okay. His little opening and closing ones. Well, his closing one's not out yet, but the opening does okay. But the main one, I suspected too, it would crush it. It is, and it looks like it'll be one that hits like 100K, 200K over time.
In the
Like a huge talk.
the funny thing about him even as well is that in the 2010 speech in London, you saw the transition of James Marshall.
2011.
That's right,
Uh,
2011.
2011.
So
Yeah.
1 year, you saw this huge transition of him
Yep.
in a year's time. It was, well, basically from like June or July 2011 to November
Yeah, it
2012.
was like a year and a half,
Yeah. I mean,
but
there was a
still huge.
massive change in who he was and what his company was. And he's a big, big supporter of the convention as well.
Yeah.
And this is the funny thing too, is in this industry, you meet a lot of crazy people. And so, in fact, we were talking about it beforehand, about some of the different speakers and like people flaking or people complaining or
Yep.
people that not to say any names, but there was 1 year where this one crazy dude, you actually had to take, like, he had overstepped the boundaries of the convention, and you talked to him, and he got really pissed and said he was going to make a rival convention and
Oh
started
yeah,
flaming you
yeah.
personally. And this
Yeah.
is actually what I wanted to get into when you were
Oh,
saying,
that was no wait. That's happened twice or three times. It's happened a couple times.
yeah,
I don't even know because I don't care.
Well, man,
But yeah, that's happened a few times.
it's crazy. I remember on this one particular time, he started flaming so hard, and then old speakers from the convention were like, "Yeah, Anthony Johnson is. He doesn't make any money. He's like a loser with all this stuff." And I'm like, I'm sitting there reading this stuff on, I think it was on a Facebook thread that was pretty massive, and I was like, "Yeah, he
Oh, I never
gives
saw
all
that.
this value." I know it was a long time ago, man. It was 2011.
Yeah.
He gives all this value for, like, doesn't care about the financial reaping of it as much as maybe you do, who are willing to sell shit which like doesn't work to make money or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just so crazy. It was like it was making the point, but somehow they were like talking all this smack, and I was like, man, nobody knows how crazy this dude is. And so since then, you have created a group of speakers that are basically great guys
Mhm.
who support you, support your message, and the more and more the convention comes up, the fat is being trimmed off, and it's pretty awesome. Or if you want to talk paleo, maybe the fat's going back on. But
No,
anyway,
you're. This is actually very intentional,
yeah,
especially after reading some about more about Steve Jobs. But he had a thing where he only looked for A players, and I realized that over time that's what I've been doing as well. And
yeah.
I want to keep honing in on that. I want the best of the best of the best, and getting. I want to get the best speakers.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's pretty intentional. You also mentioned money. It's interesting. You're right. Honestly, over the years, I haven't cared about money. It's been second place, so it hasn't been off the chart completely. But it's been second, in a distant second, to product quality.
Yeah.
So specifically the events and videos. And you're right, absolutely right, that those have been of paramount importance to me.
This fly is
But
killing me. It's back.
I don't even know. Oh, that big one, yeah, that
Yeah, keep
bastard.
going, keep going.
So what I've come to realize with the convention through Steve Jobs and especially his relationship with Wozniak is that in the early years I was more like Wozniak, but I think over time I've become a little bit more like Jobs. So the money part is becoming more important, but not. It's becoming equally as important, I would say, as product quality for what I do in content quality with the company. Because to me, they're both important because I can't continue to build an amazing company if I don't have the money to do it, and I want to keep doing that. So I actually want to make a lot of money at this point, but I want to do so without compromising even a millimeter, not at all.
But
And so
see,
that's why. Go
well,
ahead.
this is what's important, man, is that it's truly selfish in the right way. Whereas a lot of people want to make money just because it's the thing to do, or they want to consume something. And
Yeah, it's stupid. It's
man,
a
well,
bunch of
I actually
nonsense.
want to talk about this because we know so many guys in many industries. And one thing that Zuzu will always say, we have calls like all the time with TSL and our mastermind group, and I mean there are 16 hours of group calls a week, every week. I mean, that's how much like
Wow.
we have a group. It's basically like a men's group. It's the best thing in the world. Man, you should come on sometime. But
Yeah.
with the mastermind, there's even more calls. So it's ludicrous, but it's awesome. It's so cool. And all of my products are influenced completely by my group. And it takes a long time for stuff to come out because they review it, they critique stuff, and I rearrange it. But one thing Zuzu always says, he's like, man, I've never met a guy who came out of the pickup scene who was good with women, good at pickup, good at whatever, who didn't sacrifice a part of his life for it, who didn't end up with, and he'll specifically say, a chemical dependency problem, some delusion of grandeur, uh,
I have some
like,
of those for sure.
yeah, well, man, I mean,
Yeah.
the crazy thing is he says that it was so obvious at one point that people who were good with women were doing it just to either cover up or distract them from the stuff really going on in their lives. I think for
Yep.
myself, I knew I was crazy or wild or doing whatever crazy stuff, and I just wanted to get laid a lot. But but you didn't clean up that stuff. You didn't like in for me, sex was so powerful, socializing, making friends, all that sort of stuff that it forced me to realize, um, basically like, wow, I've got to change it. That's why I'm so grateful for sex and seduction and even the dating industry culture because it made me change and it so
Yeah.
gave me a definition of things. But when you talk about people running businesses or whatever, even with my business, the selfishness that you're talking about is a little bit different.
Hmm.
Whereas the selfishness, when you're selfish to a disorder, or you're selfish to an insecurity, or you're selfish to some sort of anger, and you even brought it up with like blaming people, being judgmental, talking shit, all that sort of stuff. Those to me are
Yeah.
symptoms of what I call antisocial behavior. And if you continue with them, you'll develop an antisocial persona, and you'll just fucking hate people. And it's not healthy. But to be selfish with what you really believe in is a different thing, and you're
Yeah.
supposed to be. Um, that being said, like, how was it that you found the balance between that? Like, where, I mean, you've got to have been tempted with your business. You've had to have offers I have
Oh.
people offering me weekly to help me with marketing or whatever, and I'm like, no, no, it's not my voice.
I think what's made it easy, I don't know about easy, but it's been very stress-free for me to maintain my integrity and not do these things, is because I repel these people. Those people hate me, I think, a lot of the time. They're not even attracted in like in a vampire kind of way to like suck money out of the company or something. They don't want anything to do with me a lot of the time because what I do is polarizing and it's antagonistic to what they believe and what they think on a daily basis.
Hmm.
So I think it's even if anybody ever gets past that sort of barrier, I don't give a shit. Uh, I don't know anybody who's ever been able to tempt me into doing something stupid. Tempt me to do something stupid that is clearly to me a compromise on who I am as a person. So I know who I am and I live by that every day, every minute. And for someone to be able to to sucker me into something that is just not an act of self adoration, as Greg Swan would say,
Yeah.
is just it's just ludicrous to me. I don't know how to live like that. Like I literally don't have comprehension of how to live life like that. And I don't think I've had that. I haven't had that at any point in my adult life. I just don't. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I don't want anything to do with it. I love myself. I love my company. I love my business. I love my wife. And I love living on Earth. And that to me is really clear. And it's been that way. It's been really clear for a hell of a long time. The entirety of my adult life. And it's only gotten clearer over the years
Man,
as time goes on
let
and
me ask you
different stuff
this.
happens.
Who
Shoot.
who did you learn the most from in terms of, self-love or self-adoration? Who was a really powerful person because you know so many people,
Outside of
and
myself, right?
yeah,
Because people always ask you that. They're like, "Who's your most influential person?"
let me
I
see
like
if I can
saying the
catch
guy
this
in the
fly
mirror.
here.
Yeah,
Oh shit.
got the Obama
So
grab.
it's you.
Yeah, I would say that first and foremost, it's me. But that's probably not what you're asking. You're probably asking outside of myself.
Yeah, what person outside yourself? What speaker, or any of that? Because I know a lot of
It's
guys influence you in a lot of ways.
definitely. I would say four people. All four of them are dead, sadly. One of them was alive, and two of them were alive in my lifetime. Two, no, three. Anyway, we'll go through it, and it'll be clear who they are and how that works out. So number one that I had a personal relationship with was Curtis, my best friend. It sounds like just a childhood friend, but really he wasn't. He was extremely influential in how I grew up, specifically in ages like I met him at 13, I think. I might have just turned 14. And then we were friends until I was like 20. So 6 years, a little over 6 years maybe. And that was a really, important time in my life as far as like growing, not just as a person, but also I think physically as well, like how my brain developed and the kind of decisions I was making and habituating over time. And I think these were good things. So it was just, incidental that we happened to meet and then become friends. I think it was chance, but we developed that relationship over time, that friendship. And he was a really good person to be around. And him being dead is still to this day, it affects me. It was a life changer for me that
Mhm.
like, obviously it's irreversible. Nothing I can do about it. Well, nothing I can do about it in a reverse sense, but I can only now accept it and go forward with it and have it support me what I want to do with my life and who I want to become.
Before you go on to the other folks, like
Sure.
what specific values did he instill in you? Like, what do you
Probably
see in your life today that you're living that?
almost everything. To say everything would be a stretch, but almost everything. So it was just the entirety of the way he lived his life. He was, he never had a chance to get into entrepreneurship and careers and do things creative in life. But I think had he had the foundation that you're now seeing me apply, that was just absolutely marvelous for living the kind of life of self-adoration and self-love and loving yourself and taking care of yourself. He had that, and it was really, really good. How he had it and why he had it, I'm not exactly sure. It's something I think about, but it's not something I've like formalized into ideas I can just kind of get out off the top of my head. But to get some more specifics, selfishness. So taking care of yourself without screwing people over. That lack of contradiction in being selfish, it's really rare today. Not just in philosophy and written philosophy and discussion, but also in people living their life. So even from a very young age, he loved himself, he took care of himself, and he pursued his values, and he didn't apologize for it. And he did that, just as a kid. I met him when he was 16, I think, so he's a little older than me. So even from a really young age, that's how he lived. He wasn't perfect with it. He made mistakes too. But I think for how young he was, it was just incredible to be around it. I know personally that's how I experienced it. It was just constantly like I looked up to this guy, and yet we were just like the best of friends. So it was really neat to be around and really really rare. I mean, I realize that not everybody has that. Clearly, I know a lot of people, especially younger people, that don't have that. But I did, and I was wise enough to learn from it, even a little bit at the time, but especially enough to remember it and then learn from it going forward in life, looking back on that and what influenced me on the decisions I made when I was young. And how, when you're young, little stuff, it's not little stuff then. Even trivial
Totally.
things that are, when you were a kid, that shit was huge.
Yeah.
And so those same things now I'm able to, I suppose with regards to him specifically in our relationship, I'm able to look at the things he said, what he recommended, and what I did that was not right or was right when I was around him and we had mutual friends and things that would happen. I can look at those decisions and I can extrapolate or pull forward good principles from them. And above all, because of who he was as a person. I would also say too that he was inspirational. So he did crazy shit, man. Like he was constantly doing small events for his friends, like
Really?
10, 20, 30, or 40, 50 people. Yeah. Like you were talking about like getting boats together at age like, 17 or whatever, and just going out to like islands with like tons of people and just doing, dude, he brought like this is the
That sounds
most
like the coolest high school experience ever, man.
dude, he one time got arrested from like the Coast Guard and like the water patrol, Marine Patrol, because he had like 30 people on like a 15-person boat. So
Oh my
the boat was
God.
gonna like capsize, and everybody was like shit faced, like. So it wasn't always the most responsible stuff, but he was always willing to do stuff that no one else was willing to do. Like another time too, he got his car stuck in a beach because no one else wanted to tow his friend's jet ski out of the water, and so he's like, "I'll fucking do it." So he did it, and then his car got stuck, and tide came up, and the car technically sunk. So it's like
Wow.
stupid mistakes that you
Oh
make as a
my
kid.
God.
But what I pulled from that, even at that age, is like he was always willing to put his foot forward and do things when everyone else bitched out. And that too was really rare. I have good friendships when I was a kid, but I don't know anyone else from my childhood that was able to do that. Nor did I ever really hear of anyone doing that. No one had that kind of courage and integrity to do
Man,
things.
you bring up something interesting. You said like when you're doing stuff as kids, a lot of times it's your first time experiencing something. You
Yep.
have the 21 convention, you have a real clear vision for it right now, and you have a lot of experience. I mean, how many of them have you done?
10?
Yeah, so you've
Yeah.
organized a pretty massive convention 10 times. But those first couple times, when was it that you felt success? Like when you were like, man, this is it.
Uh, Definitely not 2008. Definitely not that year when shit went south really fast, really bad. I would say I had it a little bit in 2007 when it actually was pulled off and there was a little bit of money made. I made like $100 off the event, so not a whole lot of money exactly, but it was something, especially
When you're
considering it was
17. Yeah,
yeah I was 17 and I had no experience with event hosting. I just fucking did it. I just went out and did it and had no idea what I was doing, but I was able to pull it off and not go into debt. So I had some recognition of that. But real success probably 2009. 2009 made some money that year.
you did.
Not some. Oh yeah, not some crazy amount, but it made money. And that was good. That was a good feeling. It was interesting to be post event and actually have not only not be in debt but actually have profit. I was like, wow, I have money from from the work I just did the past 12 months.
Yeah.
12 months of work, and now I have money. So that was probably the first time I really felt it, and it was a good feeling.
And then,
Um,
do you feel that uh, it was a good expression of who you are and what you believe in? Then.
Not at that point with regards to the money, because even though I felt that success, it wasn't really deliberate and conscious. Like it wasn't like a really big goal that then I hit and I was like, yes, I did it. It
Well,
just happened.
I mean, like the voice of the convention, like it really spoke a powerful message of what you were
Oh
like. Fuck,
yeah,
man.
yeah. I was pretty excited when I changed the name and I was starting to put the videos out again for free. Because in 2008 the videos weren't free, so these are some big changes, putting the
That's
videos
right.
back out for free,
Yeah.
and then changing the name and changing the direction of the convention. I was now incorporating. It was controversial at the time. You know, it's so normal now, but it used to not be like that. When I wanted to bring in health speakers, people were like, "What the fuck? It's a pickup convention. What are you doing? That's stupid. You're
Man, what
like
do guys?
crossbreeding."
Because people were still saying that in 2012. What do guys say now?
Oh, if
Like when
I
you
don't know,
ask for speakers.
anybody who says it within recent years, I just ignore it because it makes people are retarded. They're so out of the loop, so clueless, and so they're judging a book so distinctly by its cover. It's just laughable.
Hmm.
So those people are just fucking imbeciles. I don't listen. I don't just be totally blunt with you. I don't care. And like I don't care to the point where it's like a fly that doesn't even like it. I don't care. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know what they're talking about. Like, are they actually talking about the company I built? Like they're just stuck in the past or something,
Yeah.
or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
They're like, look, they're finding one video, and then they're like, wow, one video is like this whole conference of like 1,000 videos, duh, which is not, of course. So does that answer your question? Yeah, I don't. When people
Yeah.
say
Sure.
that, I
Sure.
don't.
And
Did
then,
they still? Oh, do they still say that? I don't think so. It's pretty far gone at this point.
well, if you were to
If they
ask,
do,
like, let's say a high name speaker that you've never worked with before, they might be like, well, what, there's all these dating videos. I don't want to be associated with that. Um,
yeah,
what
I
do
don't
you,
even.
that
I
doesn't
would
happen,
just.
huh?
It doesn't happen at this point, I don't think. Probably because when I invite new speakers, I typically introduce them to the speakers that are most relevant to them, that they have the highest likelihood of knowing. So whether that's James Marshall or whether that's Mark Sisson or Doug McGuff or whoever, I bring that up to them first and foremost. And that then kind of sets the tone for the discussion that we're going to have. No one in a long time has brought up like, but you have dating speakers. Like it doesn't. If it does happen, I'm not even registering it as something that's happening because
Right.
I just blow it off because it's not true to me. It doesn't. It's just a mistake that the person's making. It's not some offensive attack or insult at this
Yeah.
point. It just at least if it is, I'm not even registering it as that. I'm just like this doesn't make any sense. It's not like that. It's just matter of fact to me. It's very. I know what it is. I know who I am, and what I'm doing with the company is it's crystal clear to me. And anything, no one else can determine that but me. I'm the primary stockholder. I own it. I founded it. It's my company. It's my baby. So if anyone says anything that's not factual about it, it's just nonsense.
Yeah. That's one thing that's interesting about you as well as in making decisions about the convention. You'll immediately, it's either yes
Yeah,
or no.
yeah.
If and
It's real clear cut.
and I even know like there are some speakers and maybe like I'm always coming to you with speakers to recommend like, but
Yeah,
if that person is in any way like, oh man, it's hard to explain, but there's a certain vibe of the wrong kind of selfishness or just real in it for themselves type mentality. You'll just be like, nope, done. Don't want to deal with you. And it doesn't matter how popular they are. Like that's something that's
yeah,
very like
yeah,
your integrity is far more important than anything that will, let's say, leverage the company. And
yeah.
I
I
think
know.
that's why money was a second, very important. And it's
Honestly, it wasn't as important. I think that's why I had problems. Now it's becoming a closer second. Now it's like, all right, this is the fuel for the company. This is the soil that I
yeah,
plant the roots of the company in. So I need
yeah.
to make sure that it's good soil. But I think because it wasn't a close second and it was like this distant thing that I didn't really understand, yeah, that's why I had problems. I just didn't know how to manage money and handle things.
And of the rest of the people that massively influenced you, just to circle back to it, who were they?
Oh yeah, the three that influenced me the most, as far as like figures in history or in recent history, would be Ayn Rand, Arthur Jones, Steve Jobs. as far as real people specifically, not fictional characters or anything. Yeah, those three people in tandem: so Ayn Rand, novelist, philosopher; Arthur Jones, inventor, and guy who's worth, genius inventor, author, just general, real American badass, not some like new neo-modern like hyper-masculinized nonsense out of a movie. This guy was the fucking cross between Iron Man, Indiana Jones, and like Hank Reardon, just like a real genius inventor. This guy's awesome.
And so, how can people find out more about him?
They can
Actually,
point to his
how does
website.
he influence the convention with you?
Well, he founded Nautilus Inc. as well as Medex, and he produced a lot of other things too. But those were his two big companies. So his writings, well, no, I would say this. I mean, he founded HIT, so High Intensity Training, which
Mm-hmm.
led me to found Drew Bay and a million other speakers, including Bill DeSimone, Doug
Yeah.
McGuff, Skylar Tanner, and many others on top of that now and in the future. But high intensity training is just one aspect of what he did. For me, Arthur Jones is probably the first person I encountered that, even though he wasn't an explicit philosopher, he did a lot of thought and philosophy and on human life and how he lived. And he wrote that really eloquently, for me anyway. I mean, it's very abrasive and brash to most people. This guy just cussed all the time and was like, fuck all these people. But I loved the way he wrote and what he wrote. And encountering that was really, really influential. I don't know what other word I'm looking for here, but influential, I'd say at the very least, in terms of finding someone who really knows how to think and think hard and think deep, and then on top of that, apply it out into reality to build a business worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and not just by chance, make that much money. Like he made that much money because he made an incredible product. He
Yeah.
revolutionized. He created an industry. He created the sports. The fitness industry as you know it now. It all comes back to him creating Nautilus centers with
I mean, for
Nautilus.
years, I didn't know what made Nautilus different, and now it's so clear.
Yeah,
But I mean, it does something which is really unique with building
yeah,
muscle. I mean, I didn't really care about it before, but because of Keith and Skylar and Mark and all
yeah.
these other guys, because of the 21 convention. I mean, it's like so crazy. Keith Norris has influenced my life in so many ways, as well as Mark. Probably more with Mark. I talk to Mark all the time.
Mark Sisson
No,
or
Mark
Mark
Tobre.
Alexander. Oh, I think I meant
Yeah,
Mark Alexander for a second. Yeah, Mark
yeah, it's
Otterbury too.
funny. They live in
Yeah,
Austin. Mark Alexander, Keith, and all these guys. And I've
yeah,
worked. And Keith is a pretty phenomenal. I've never been more powerful than when I worked on the ARX, the machine behind you. I worked on a different
yeah,
version, but
yeah. That's right there.
yeah, I
Free
always talk to
advertising.
I always talk to Mark Tobre about fitness. I really like him, and
Yeah,
it's just different when you talk to an expert. And I remember in I think 2010 when I met Keith Norris, it was clear from talking to him. It was with you. Um,
you might have
that
been 2011, I think.
Okay. The guy was an expert. I mean, the guy was an expert.
Yeah,
It was just so clear.
he's
He wasn't
he's
some,
extremely intelligent.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But that that was so cool. I'm not sure where I was going with this, but with the Nautilus machines, because that's
yeah.
such a different way of lifting and using your muscles and all that sort of stuff. Um,
Well, especially at the time it was invented, it was totally like you had nothing then advertised and promoted but like barbells and maybe some dumbbells.
mhm.
And it was all these dudes lifting in these like dark dungeon gyms. And Nautilus machines were not only better for the most part, depending on what you want to do, but for the most part, they're substantially, if not dramatically better than free weights. And on top of that, anybody can use them. So the way they're designed, you can have people go into an air conditioned facility like an LA Fitness or whatever. You have AC, you have lights. Music is not such a good thing, but there's that too, unfortunately. And you have people that can go into a gym now and they don't see it as something that other people do. They see it as something they themselves can do. Whether you're, some 16-year-old kid in high school training for a sports team or whatever you're doing, whatever your sport is, or you're an 85-year-old woman who has like osteoporosis or something, and your doctor said that if you work out, maybe it'll prevent that or slow that down or whatever, or you're your age or my age or you're in your 40s or your 50s, anybody can go into it. You can get on a Nautilus machine. You can figure out how to use it pretty quickly yourself, or even if you have a trainer, very quickly. It's very safe. And you never had that before. You just had these fucking barbells and dumbbells that no one knew how to use, that only these huge jack dudes were using. Then it was all like intimidating and dark and sweaty and like disgusting. So Nautilus like brought his company and his machines brought fitness out of that like dark time wasn't necessarily the dark age, but it was like a darker time.
Hmm.
And now it's like well lit. It's everybody does it. It's accepted as something you can do. And sadly, that then went into like cardio and stuff and the aerobics craze. But at least it got it out of like just barbells and dumbbells that were like underneath a stadium, at high
Yeah,
school. Like,
that's man, this flies back. The thing is that when I started working out with Mark Tobre, he had me hire a guy who was local in Austin, but now, dude, this is the caliber of dude, Mark is the shit. He's an awesome dude. But he had me hire a PICP coach, which is a Polican Institute
okay,
coach.
yeah.
So, man, that was crazy. And I can go to Keith with this stuff, who's
Mhm.
equally is able to show me the proper lifting form and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, him and Mark I've always thought would get along really well.
Yeah,
They,
yeah.
they
I don't
should
know
be.
if they've ever talked, but
I don't think so. Maybe no, I don't
because
think so.
they're both fans of they're kind of different. Like Keith is so American, which I like in a lot
Yeah,
of ways. I mean,
yeah,
he's such a straight shooter, but
yep,
in true athlete. I mean, was
yeah.
in I think what's so interesting is Norris athlete first, competitive, like learn that, and then because of that, learned the proper ways of staying in shape and fitness and longevity.
That's what I like about what he writes too. Is Keith is like, uh, I think he would describe himself above all as a physical culturalist. So he's
Hmm.
interested in the entirety of anything to do with
Yeah,
like using your muscles, which is a really broad thing, but he's very explicit in being for that and in being interested in that. And other people you don't usually see that. You either see them just into athletics and things of that nature, or with HIIT just exercise and like anything that doesn't use like a Nautilus machine is stupid, which is not. But that's kind of it puts you like in these categories where people don't, like Scholar says, they don't communicate anymore. They stop engaging with each other. And Keith to me is
mm,
like is a person that has both of those things, especially
yeah,
being around Skylar. He
yeah.
has both of those down tight, and Mark Alexander too, being around him.
Yeah, man. Anyway, I started working with this guy, Luke Lehman, who was in Austin, and he's now one of the main coaches at the Polican Institute in Rhode Island. Dude, that guy, he's like very similar to Keith. It's pretty awesome. But he went through like 100 lifts with me that Mark was having me doing of showing like proper form, what happens when you don't. And man, the gym can be a freaking danger. You can really fuck up your body if and this is
I
something that
agree.
you always talk
I
about.
completely agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, I harp and take a lot of shit for it on it.
and that's
Um,
that's also why you work on the ARX Fit.
yeah, to a huge degree, it's extremely safe.
Yeah.
It has a perfect strength curve in everything you do dynamically, so moving.
Hmm.
And you don't see that with any other machine.
Yeah.
So to hurt yourself on the ARX is like almost impossible. You have to really be a total fuck up in using it to hurt
And
yourself.
I was actually lifting yesterday, and I do free weights and all that sort of stuff. Man, and it is so easy. I've talked about this with you before. When you're pushing a certain weight that you haven't done or challenging yourself in that way, it's almost impossible to maintain that good form. And it really gets in your head. Like, and you always bring up back squats, barbell squats, and
Yeah.
it's so easy, man. It's so easy to lose form. It's
Yep.
so, in fact, if you were to just go online and look at how to do them, there's videos showing you how, but then to translate that into actually doing it, it's
Yeah.
so difficult because if you, especially if you're going Olympic style and going all the way down, you
Yeah.
have to rotate your hips. Everybody's hip joints are different too. It's just very
That's right.
difficult
Everybody has different hip joints.
to
Not only on top of
maintain.
that, everybody's hips are tight a lot of the time because they sit a lot.
Hmm.
So everybody has all these. Not only is everybody's bone structures a little bit different sometimes, then on top of that, everybody does different things in their life. Like I sit on a computer chair a lot. I get up and walk as much as I can, but it's still like everybody has their own unique things that they need to deal with. And then on top of that, even with the coach, look at the coach from CrossFit. That guy's fucking paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of his life. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
He wasn't doing a barbell squat. He was doing
he's
like
doing like
a
a snat or something. I don't know.
snatch, some crazy shit. Yeah. And he's a fucking coach, man. And he hurt himself. And like, how much different is that from a barbell back squat where you need like to do any amount of weight that's considered heavy? You need like a fucking coach. And then even the coaches hurt themselves doing stuff sometimes. Like there's no way out of it, and you're putting your spine at risk. To me, it's all just ludicrous, crazy shit. I don't know why you would ever put.
Imbeciles.
It's nuts, man. Like your life is so. I love myself. I love my life. I can't imagine putting myself in intentional risk in the pursuit of health. It's one thing to get in a car and drive around and risk your life getting in a car accident, but that's just part of living life. but risking yourself of significant or deadly injury for all you know in the pursuit of health and a better physical life is just retarded.
Well,
There's no way this works out for me. I have no idea people get rid of this cognitive dissonance with it.
it's an
I don't
interesting
get
thing
it.
because I mean, I fall into that category, especially in training martial arts. I just recorded a video with Ed because he's doing this. Man, it's really good stuff. I
Yeah, he's been telling me through email. Yeah,
Man, we recorded some stuff. That guy is so good. He's the best martial artist I've ever worked with. I mean,
yeah,
I've worked with so many. I actually train at multiple gyms now. I train with a lot of guys who fight in the UFC now,
yeah.
um, and who are great in that aspect. And but
With
Ed is
defense and martial arts, you mean?
well, yeah, yeah. I mean, like you work like Tim Kennedy trains at my gym, and he's a UFC fighter. He's got a fight coming up with Michael Bisping, and on the 15th of April, I think, or something like that. But and that guy, it's insane. You see, he's a phenom. He's a former Army Ranger. You see that guy work out, you'd hate it. He's got a barbell. I don't know how much is on it, but it's like 200 pounds. I mean, it's a huge amount, and he jumps, goes all the way ass to the ground,
Oh my
jumps
God,
up.
dude.
But you know, training for
Dude, that's
fighting.
so bad.
Oh, totally, man. Totally,
Yeah.
totally. If
You
I do
know,
that with just the bar,
a teenager, a high schooler, I think a high schooler, or like a freshman in college, he broke his back recently too doing that. Like maybe 4 or 5 months ago now in some state, at some college. He was doing like a step up with a barbell on his back where you don't quite jump, but it's sort of like a
yeah,
jump.
totally.
And yeah, he just fucking came down on his back and he's paralyzed now for the rest of his life. He's in a fucking wheelchair.
Yeah,
It's crazy, man.
man. So
Yeah,
I wonder
sorry to
about
interrupt.
that whole thing because, like, with myself, Ed, all these guys, you get injured so much in training martial arts. But there is a difference because that's kind of part of the process of training martial arts. And there's a
Yeah.
degree of physicality that people enjoy with it, where that comes with the territory. But you know, in training jujitsu, you don't have to get hurt, but you can get hurt very easily. But if you train carefully, so it's kind of
Yeah.
a weird thing, you know. Whereas Ed came from a background. Um, Check out his 21 convention video, Ed Aiken,
Yep.
the Killer Instinct, I believe it's called. But his company
Developing killer instinct is
developing, okay,
developing. Yeah.
developing the Killer Instinct. I mean, dude, the guy when he was learning martial arts, he was learning fighting. He learned. Uh oh. Let me get this sucker. Let me get it. Let me get it. Oh, I think I got it. Do I got it? Do I got it? No. But
Uh,
but anyway, he had to learn fighting. I mean, he street fought. That's and he
yeah.
talks. He has now all these like articles on it and shit with people
Yeah.
that he fought and stuff. But I mean, you get injured. You get
I'm
crazy shit.
fucking sure you do. Yeah.
My teeth are chipped because of Ed Aiken. So, but anyway, man, the deal with all that is that it's so hard to find that balance. And I think as men, and this is where the 21 convention comes into play, they need to have an outlet for how they
Yeah.
can exert themselves and a proper way to do it or a way to do it where they don't, where it's not practicing self adoration because that's tough.
Well, they need a place for dialogue, as Sock calls it, and I like that word a lot. They need a place to problem solve and exchange with in dialogue with other people,
I'm gonna get it, man. Um, yeah,
and they don't have that outside of the convention a
Sock
lot of the time.
actually brings up a crazy thing. I don't know if he brought it up on my podcast or I was personally talking to him, but he actually says that the internet and the 21 convention and all that sort of stuff. And fuck, man, I should have talked to him because like one thing you got to ask Anthony Johnson, and we hadn't even talked about you and I doing a podcast, but he said and how the internet revolutionized and changed people's lives because the 21 convention coming from even the top layer is such an example of that, you know, of
Yeah.
how it changed everything.
Well, I think they call it new media, which I guess the Twin Convention would be a small part, well, not a small part of, but that's one part of what's going on with the Twin Convention. And another way, where you can keep, I don't think you finished your thought.
No,
I
no,
don't.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the Toronto Convention is a part of the YouTube revolution or like new media. So I'm able to independently produce proprietary content on my own with a company that I made out of nothing, out of just a credit
Yeah.
card with like
Yeah.
500 bucks on it, and I'm able to publish that on a platform that is a multi-billion-dollar platform supported by an even bigger company, Google, and they get YouTube everywhere, and through the channel I have with them, a couple channels now, yeah, I can get my content all over the globe instantly.
Yeah.
I just put anytime I put out a video, you can view it wherever the hell you want in the whole world right away, instantly, the whole thing, if it's a full length video, especially. And yeah, being a part of that, it's pretty awesome. And I'm critical of Google sometimes with the things they do, but I still am hugely thankful of what they've done with YouTube. Even though I think it's perfect, just being able to get on that, and then on top of that, monetize your content and just put ads in it like a television show is just fucking awesome. It's so unique and so new, and it's so efficient, man. Like you produce, like when you get a partner channel that has like ads on it, you just get your content, you make it as high quality as possible if you want. I think you should. That's what I do. And then you just put it out there, and you get as many people watching it as you can. And then it's just like a small TV channel at this point, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where I could theoretically compete with like real TV channels that have like smaller viewerships, like a few million people.
And you
At
have
some
like
point,
a massive group of subscribers. Like your average view time
yeah,
is like huge.
it's huge. It's like triple or quadruple the average. I think it's like 15 minutes per
Because
view.
like, and this is for
Uh,
like guys, they go to a thing and it's like a convention speech and they go, oh, this isn't what I want to watch. They click out of it.
yeah,
Even with all those guys doing that, you have 15 minutes. That means
yeah.
there's a lot of people going, an hour watching your stuff, which is very, very cool.
Sometimes longer. Adam Lyons, some of his talks, and Drew Bay, they have like 2 hour talks.
Yeah.
So if anybody watches that for 2 hours, it like skyrockets the watch time because, well, they also have ads too. So in long videos, there's like a billion ads. So in a 2 hour video, just like a 2 hour TV show, like a movie, there's like fucking 10, 11, 12 ads in it. But to me, that's pretty fair, I think, to put in there because
Yeah.
you'd do the same thing if you watched it on TV.
Um, Let me get into some stuff here. The next 21 convention.
Shoot, yeah,
Why is there's only one last time in 2012. You took 2013 off.
yep,
2012, you had three, which were in England. They were in Austin, Texas, and in
yep.
Melbourne, Australia. Which is Melbourne and Austin are so similar, man.
I agree. They're
Melbourne's
both pretty
bigger
similar.
though. I in
Is it?
some ways I actually like Melbourne better, but because it has a beach. But
Yeah.
England very different. Uh,
Yes. Yep.
so why only one this year? Why in Tampa? Talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, did I even announce Tampa yet? No, I didn't announce that. It's okay though. We'll put it out. That's an exclusive for the
Okay.
TSL podcast. I only announced Florida for my wedding. I put out Florida because I was worried that people would be like, "Man, where the hell is it? Like, I need to buy like a plane ticket eventually." Anyway, one event. There's a few reasons for one event instead of three, and that's only specific to 2014. I won't say anything about 2015, but other than like I'll consider again multiple events. I'm not like announcing anything per se, but it one event is not like a standard going forward for the convention. It's just what I want to do this year specifically above all. And I want to do that because in a lot of ways, because I took that year off and it allowed me to think about what I want to do long term with the company and the kind of organization I want to build that is just like the most badass organization on the planet for what it is and for what it does. For me right now, that means one event. That means I want to hone in and I want to produce, and this comes back to the Steve Jobs stuff. I want to produce a product, the event specifically, that is just fucking insane. That is, he called it insanely great. I want to make it insanely great to the point where he would look at it and be like, holy fuck, I can't believe this exists. And people already say that, sometimes in the exact words, sometimes in different words about the event. You've met hundreds of attendees at this point. You meet them and they come to the event and they leave and they're like, this is the most amazing event ever. But I don't really think that represents the kind of quality that I'm capable of producing in an event. I think I can do that like times 10, times 20, times 100. I think I can make the convention like exponentially better than it's been without increasing the price to some crazy, $15,000 level like TED events or whatever the hell their ticket prices are.
Right.
I think I can make this like dollar for dollar, like such an amazing value in a product, in an event, in a single weekend, that one of those seats is like the most, the best experience. Sitting in that seat for that weekend and going to the event and experiencing it is going to be like such an amazing product that it's just like jaw dropping.
Yeah.
And that also then relates to, so one event and that one event means for me focus. So it's one event that I can focus on perfecting my craft and what I do with building events and being an architect of them. So one event, one event, one event. But then on top of that, that also relates to why it's smaller. So 55 people. Well, it's actually bigger than some of the other events in 2012, but considering how big the audience has grown, I think it's going to sell out. We'll see. put my money where my mouth is. But I want to limit it to 55 people rather than trying to lower the prices and get more attendees. Like we had like 100 guys in 2009, and I think I could do that again if I just dropped the prices. People would come. But to me, that's stupid because I don't want to do that. I want to. The convention for me is not about helping guys. It's about building an amazing company and an amazing organization that does amazing things and produces amazing products and services that are just like, groundbreaking. They put dents in the universe, as Jobs would say. I really want to keep doing that, and I want to do that better than I ever have. And for me, that means smaller events and keeping it small over time. You've mentioned this probably over the years explicitly, that if the event somehow got too big, it would lose like its soul. It would lose its core of what it is. And I agree. Events I've attended that have a few hundred people at them, 300, 400, 500 people. Paleo FX, I'm not saying that they've lost their soul, by the way. This is just how they do their business, so I'm not criticizing it for them. It's what they do. But also like political conferences, like Liberty Conference I went to with like Ron Paul and stuff. When you have 500 people at an event, it's not the same thing as the 21 convention. Not even close. Obviously, it's not the same thing. But even structurally and how it functions, it's completely different. Being there as an attendee is nothing like being at the 21 convention. And I want to maintain that. Like you mentioned with maintaining my integrity. I want to maintain the integrity of the company and of the events. An event has integrity just like a man, and it's just as seldom, to quote from the Fountainhead, sort of. And I really believe that. And what that looks like in reality is limiting it, a hard cap of like 55 people, so that it never gets too big to where it now just becomes this like convoluted mess of people that aren't talking, that aren't exchanging ideas, that aren't problem solving, that aren't speaking face to face, one on one. I mean, if you go to the 21 convention and there's 500 people and Doug McGuff or you or Adam Lyons, whoever, you get swarmed by literally 200 people. No one's going to fucking talk to you. It'll just be like this constant photo shoot of iPhones or whatever going off. Like that's okay if that's what you want to do, but that's not what I have envisioned for the company. That to me is not relevant to my goals in my life and building this amazing company with amazing videos and content and ideas and everything.
And I think that's interesting with you is the event of the 21 convention is first before the YouTube channel. So a lot of people know it as this event which exchanges all this information, which it does worldwide. But your main goal, what I've seen and what the convention I think obviously shows, is not that. I mean, I've spoken at a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I've missed 2007 and then Sweden 2010. But
yeah, I think you're 8. Yeah.
But man, I've been at a lot and we've talked a lot, and you've never explicitly said this, but the event is the most important thing. The event, and it truly is. If you've been to the event, it's the most important thing. If you're just watching it on YouTube, totally different experience. Very good. Mm-hmm. I mean, superlative. And what I always go ahead.
Go ahead. Jinx. I agree. Very, very directly and explicitly, because I think the YouTube channel, it is the quality it is. The videos are the quality they are because the events are so badass, because they're so awesome. What you're seeing in video over time, over many years and eventually decades, they're just like smaller reflections of what actually happened in the first place. You had this amazing event that was then recorded the best way I could at the time, and then divided into videos that were then published to the internet, like books in a way, or just the videos themselves. So yeah, the reason the videos are as good as they are at all is because the events are fucking awesome. And you're right, that is where my focus is. The videos are really important to me too, though, really important. And I'm going to increase that this year as well. As part of what I'm doing with the company going forward, is we're going to bump video quality through the roof, but also keep that in check.
It's already so good.
That's what I mean. See, like just like that. Like everybody says that. Like, yeah, his videos are awesome, dude. To me, they're good, but dude, I know that I'm capable of like 100 times better. Like, I want the best. I want the best videos in the world for what they are in our content space for what I'm doing. I want to have like video that's just fucking killer, man. That's really important to me, and I want to hit that this year, especially. Going forward, but especially as like a new era of the 21 convention, like a new revolution. Of
totally.
attendees of mind.
And it should be, man. And I think like even your caliber of speaker that you're building up at this point. I mean, because a lot of us have spoken at multiple ones, and the new guys coming in are even more and more like the new people. Like I was at Melbourne. I hosted Melbourne 2012.
Hell yeah.
But James Marshall's speeches were off the hook. I
Yep.
felt though the new speaker, Mark Otobre, was the shit. Mainly because maybe I know James and but I mean his speeches were
Yeah.
amazing. They were awesome. I felt you know the some of the new blood was
The new.
like yeah. But
Yeah.
what you saw there was a speaker who had risen to a to become better at what he does, James. And then you saw this new guy coming in, Mark, who I was
Yeah.
just like, man, this is fucking awesome stuff. I remember sitting in the audience. I bought his DVD set
Oh yeah, yeah.
just because I was like, man, this is too good. And then since become friends with him, worked with him from over the ocean, man. He's in
Just
Melbourne, live in
remotely.
Austin.
Yeah.
So, but man, you brought something up,
Maybe
and
they're connected by like underground tunnels.
seriously, man,
Austin,
they're
Australia.
very similar. A
Yeah.
couple weeks ago, I interviewed a bunch of people from Melbourne. It was bizarre because it's a good city, man. I got to go back.
You
Um,
should interview James Social Coach before I forget, James McLean.
yeah, actually, maybe for if this does happen, the 21 Convention podcast with in talking to him, it's weird. I was actually talking about this with Damien Dieka, and because they both live in Sydney, so they both talk to each other and meet up.
Yeah.
With the TSL podcast, I don't know because it just different voice, different message. So I'm not sure. I should probably like get on the phone with him, but nice enough guy.
Oh yeah.
But you brought up something about to bring it back to the T21C. You brought up the idea of TED Talks, and we've talked about this. Like 21 Convention is like the TED Talks for men, but it's better in the sense
Sorta.
that TED
Yeah.
Talks has become well, it's so different, you know?
I think I found a thread the other day of some moderator or speaker from TED or something on their website, the main website, not like TEDx or whatever, some offshoot, but like TED. And they were like, "Should we do a men's convention?" I did a search for men, and like there was one talk that pulled up that was given at like a women's conference, TED Women or whatever they have. And the stuff that people wrote was like a lot of it was just like ridiculous and absurd. But I realized, uh, at least this is my current thinking in a very broad sense, that what really separates the 21 Convention and TED, the two, is the fact that they don't have TED men, that they have stuff like TED Women and all this other stuff they do. And it's never, they don't give a shit, man, as far as I can see. Clearly, they're not doing
Yeah,
anything yet.
I think like
And
stuff like that is ridiculous, but it's so typical of TED because TED is marketed like if you're a speaker at TED, you're like, well, hey, schmooze with all these other rich folks. Here's who you talk to. Here's the press events. Here's how you have to talk.
yeah, fuck that.
It has this crazy authoritarian feel of it, even though
Yeah,
it's like these
yeah, you're
15-minute
right.
speeches where, and here's what I see, man, there are some badass TED Talks. Let me just tell you, there's some like really good ones that I like, and that's about 5%, but there's just so many TED Talks, right?
I would think it's the only ones where people can condense substance down into like a short clip, which is fucking hard as hell,
Yeah.
which like no one can do. Well, no, not to that level. And yeah, they lack substance. That's why the talks are short. They shorten them because like they're limiting that out.
And so TED was this thing which is like carry this vision to the world, but let's care about all this other stuff too. Their priorities are off, in my opinion. Whereas yours is like true expression of that person. Let the person teach, let the person express, and I'm gonna put it up there,
Yep.
just how they say it. And
Yep.
I'm gonna take the integrity of the speaker that I have faith in that they're gonna do that. Whereas TED, it's like, man, talk about this. Your speeches have to be edited. They have to be regulated. We're the brand that's saying this. It's just such a different feel. And
I
at the
know.
events, the fucked up thing is at the events, it's like, here's who you talk to. Here's how you have to talk.
Oh.
Man, like here are
Even
the other speaker. Man, it's
even
just,
the way you describe it, it just makes me want to vomit. Like associating that in any way with like hosting a conference just makes me feel like psychologically nauseous.
mhm.
Like it's just so out. You're right. It is exactly opposite what we do at the convention. To me,
Yeah.
the convention, it's about expression. It's about freedom. It's about
And
independence.
and then with the attendees, you're interacting with them. I mean, that was the whole
Yes.
thing, man. It was like I remember in 2008, it was like, man, I'm broke. Let's try and make some extra money. I think you made like $750 or something, which was
Oh, the dinner. The
yeah.
dinner.
Because we didn't have what you now call the hero's dinner, which is included with your ticket. But
Now it's free. You're paying for it. It's free. It's
but
included.
but man, it was like
Uh,
it was cool because it had everybody, work together and get to know each other. And actually, again, we
yep.
won't say some names, but at that dinner, you remember, it was divided. Some of the guys sat by
Oh
themselves,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
coaches,
yeah.
and I was like, what a bunch of assholes, man. And like, come and help these people. And then some of the
Uh,
other dudes who helped then complained because they didn't get enough sales through it. And as I've always told you, it's like, man, if I get invited on the Today Show, I don't get pissed about what I get from the Today Show, which actually, there's all these marketers that have done all this statistic shit. You don't make sales from that. You get some clout or whatever, but you don't really make much presence for being on whatever shows unless you're on like, as a featured guest for Oprah, but not some 5-minute clip. But
yeah.
at your event, what speakers get is so cool, and attendees is a great video of themselves, like a broadcast to an audience of basically pre-selected people who are looking for the stuff because you've
Yeah.
built up such a brand. And then you interact with so many different guys. I mean, I've made friends with and had life-changing experiences from plenty of people in the audience at the 21 convention, as well as other speakers. But man, attendees, that's the fucking coolest thing, whether they
Yeah.
became my client or not. And a lot of times, no. I mean, there's dudes who came from Melbourne that I still talk to. I mean, man, a lot of the volunteers. I
Oh yeah.
talk to Andrew all the time. I talk to God. What is? Oh, I'm brain farting. I talked to
Seth.
this guy Marshall. I talked to who's the dude with curly hair? He was
Matt Goldenberg.
no. Damn it!
Which event?
I'm
We
gonna
had
look at
different.
Melbourne.
Oh.
Oh, but all the
Yeah.
events, man. I'm gonna find him on Quinn
Oh yeah, Quinn. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
just many people. But it's crazy, just massively influential. Now you
Yeah.
brought up something about the reason having a men's conference. Actually, first off, was there anything that you wanted to include that we didn't
Oh
cover with the 21 convention?
yeah, we're
I'm
talking
forgetting.
about this year the change of one event to three. It's a big change.
Yeah,
The short version of that, yeah, to recap, is that I want to focus on quality to the point where even you will be just in disbelief. If I can make you just come to the event and walk out and be like, "What the fuck did I just attend?"
yeah.
That is it's not necessarily my direct goal, but that'd be a really neat consequence to see in my work. To see you and some of the people that are really familiar with it be like, "Holy shit."
And what can you say is going to change or influence that?
Not being broke anymore. So this past year, I've actually been able to save up money, and the way I'm pricing tickets, the event's actually going to turn a profit rather than bleed money, which is not good. Bad for
Okay.
business, I hear. So the event is going. I'm not going to be able to. I'm not. I'll be able to, but I won't. I won't cut corners and carry risks anymore that cause me severe anxiety throughout the event. So, for example, you mentioned the video is great, right? All the
Yeah,
videos are great. They come
yeah,
out awesome. They're in HD. We're filming with one camera, man. That makes me not sleep at night because if we lose there's just one
yeah,
camera. You lose that camera, you're fucked, man. And that's happened. Like that happened
yeah.
to Greg Swan, dude.
Yeah, it happened to Greg Swan. It happened to me.
Yeah.
Well, with the end of a speech.
Oh yeah, dude. I know. I'm sorry, man. And that's something that like gets forgotten. But dude, to
That's why
me,
you got to attend, man.
yeah, that's why you got 10. But to me, it's just that is a representation. Even if I'm skirting by with one camera a lot of the time, that is dangerous
Yeah.
and it's reflective of cutting corners. And I don't want to do that anymore. That's just not
Mm.
that's not what I'm about, and that's not what this company's about. So that's going to change. We're going to have two, maybe three cameras, probably two to start with, and then going forward, we'll have three. That'll bump up the quality of the video substantially, and I'm going to sleep better at night because now if shit hits the fan, we still have one camera. And as simple as that is, it means no matter what, we have your talk recorded. And not carrying that risk of losing it all in one swing is, to me, huge. It's huge for Michael, the creative director of photography. It's huge for the speakers that are in the know like you. Now you don't have to worry anymore if the talk's just going to get lost or something. A little bit of it or the whole thing or whatever. None of it. And for me and for anyone else who's in the know with the company, who's a shareholder, who has some sort of leadership role, it's not something. It's still something to be aware of. But now I'm not sweating bullets over it. And a lot of things like that that a lot of people wouldn't have taken note of over the years, but have been there the whole time. And that's going to change. There won't be risks associated with that anymore. The hotel is nicer. We're staying. The hotel is being, or the conference is being held at a 4-star hotel, so a really nice hotel. I got it at a great price, so it works out, and it's an awesome hotel, which is higher. It's a higher quality than any hotel we've ever had the conference at.
Hmm.
And it's changes like that that I get to make now because I'm not broke and I'm not bleeding cash. I'm not underselling myself. I'm not undervaluing myself anymore, which has kind of been like a limiting belief I've had over the years. I know how awesome this event is, and it's going to be even more awesome. And I'm not going to undercharge for it. I'm not going to undersell it. I know how valuable it is. I know how insanely valuable it is to people who come. So I'm going to charge for that. I'm going to charge appropriately, and I'm not going to then suffer the consequences of charging too little and shooting myself in the foot every year. So that's all. You're going to see a lot of big stuff like that, multiple cameras and such, but more stuff too. Even like I want to do live streaming for this event, which I think is within the budget and we can do, and that might even be free. Not the whole event, but I'll do like pick select talks, and that'll go out to the whole YouTube channel. That'll go out to like live, like a few thousand people. So things like that that I can do now, or even maybe try to charge for it and offer the whole event up for pay-per-view. Things like that are going to get done rather than just some far-off dream of doing it when I have money someday that would never otherwise come if I'm not valuing myself appropriately. And even little things, man. That's what I learned from jobs too. Is it's not just big stuff like that. It's not just multiple cameras. It's not just live streaming. It's not just a nice hotel. It's everything you interact with when you come to the convention from now on is fucking first class, top quality, the best there is. That even means the bag you get when you walk up as an attendee. That means the tickets are going to get mailed. That means that the sales page. Now, this first one will be good, but going forward, they're going to be amazing. Not just in how they sell you, whatever, but how they look, how they represent the company in its totality as packaging for what we're doing. And so everything you interact with, every person, every chair, every stage, every light, we're going to have new lights for the stage as well, for the speakers, so it actually looks a lot nicer. It's like every little thing like that I'm going over. And that's what I've spent this whole year and a half doing that I've taken off. I've refined what I want to do with the company, where I want to take it, and then specifically apply that out to what that's going to look like in not just large detail, but small detail as well. And it's going to be just bad to the bone, like astronomically better. That's the goal anyway, of what you've experienced in the past, which, as you said, was already awesome to begin with.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because I remember in Austin 2012 and then in Melbourne especially, you were like, "Man, I'm not going to do a 2013 one." I was like, "Man, don't lose momentum." But
Yeah.
you did one of the rare things to make your vision actually better. And
Hmm.
that is rare. I mean, dude, let me tell you, from running my own company, it is fucking tough. Your vision is
Yeah.
so hard when you can't see the forest of the trees, you know? And well, one of the last things that I want to ask you about is, well, last couple things is, what is your overall vision for the company? Where is it going to be in a year or maybe 5 years down the road, something like that?
I want it to reach its highest vision, just like I want to live the highest vision of my own life. I don't want to just like think about it and like write it down. I want to live it. I want to do it. I want to get it done. As Greg might say, Greg Swan. His favorite word he said was done, 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 done. Get it done. Why isn't it done? Get it fucking done. That doesn't mean I'm like going to get there and then stop. It means that I'm going to pursue that harder than ever before, which already was hard as hell. And as far as the company, the same thing. So it's not just my life; it's the company as well, as an entity in itself, as an end in itself. I want to make it just amazing. That to me means hundreds of thousands of YouTube subscribers, maybe other platforms as well. Like if Hulu ever gets into like independent content creators or Netflix or whatever, I'm always keeping an eye out for that stuff. So it's making the company as best as it can, the best it can be, which is probably going to be in some respects as huge as it can be. So not the events, but the online stuff, all that whole online presence, just huge. And I want to make it, a really wealthy company that has options where I can do new things and find new avenues to create new products that are also awesome that fit the vision of the company and what I want to do with my life. So yeah, I want to make it a really wealthy company. I mean, I keep mentioning Apple. Look at Apple. Apple has such a small market share of what they do with just say PCs. but they've been like the wealthiest company on the planet. I look at the Twin Oak mention and I'm like, why can't I do that with respect to what I've created and in the context of what I've created? Whether that's greater or not as measurably as high, I don't know, it's probably not as high as Apple at some point. Who knows though? That's the thing is, who
Well,
knows?
why not? I mean,
Why not?
and
Yeah,
think about it,
exactly.
like, why not in the sense that you're really the only true men's conference out there.
Yeah.
Ted had turned it down, and let's talk about that, man. Why is
Sure.
it that there's a women's conference but not a men's conference? There's such a need for
Well,
it.
that's probably a multifaceted answer. So it's probably very complex because there's probably a lot of things going into it. I'm not trying to dodge it. I'm saying
Yeah.
like it's not just one thing. It's a representation to me of the organization at its on its fundamental roots. So what it is, that's why you don't see men's conference.
Well, I mean,
Whereas
that's the other thing too. It's like, many companies, Ted, we're kind of harping on them, or I'm kind of harping on them, but it's that the 21 convention is doing something which has to do with your vision and your voice, and that is clear, and the vision of the in the voice of the individual. Whereas Ted is like, let's do the individual, the vision and the voice of what the culture says, and the culture is saying that
yeah,
you know whatever, these issues are cool and favorable and profitable, and then we can put a mask of we're doing good because
yeah,
we're these yuppie whatever motherfuckers and yada yada, and we can pat ourselves on the back, and it's
yeah, it's
such a
all
different voice, man. And it's like
yeah,
with, man, watch Damien Dieca's interview, and especially like he said, he's like, man, if I can come to Florida for that convention, I want to come.
oh
And he
yeah,
would talk about this. He said he would
yeah.
like, I don't care about the dating thing, or he didn't even talk about that at the Melbourne one. He's like, man, I'll talk
I'm gonna
about
run
men's
out of dating
issues.
coaches at this rate.
Well, he was like, I'll talk about men's issues. I'll talk about whatever because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
men are ignored. Yeah, men had favors with the law or whatever, but the enforcement of equality is regulation, and then it gets distorted and totally fucked up to the
Yeah.
point where it's like they're, you know, feminism or whatever you want to call it, I think may have been there for a reason, but what it has come to is not a good expression of
It's horrible.
women or
Yeah,
equality or whatever bullshit it says that it promotes. It's
yeah,
really a terrible thing. Whereas now men don't have a voice. I mean, it's so huge. In fact, I should
yeah.
probably interview Damien again because we've talked personally, him and he didn't cover everything that is out there, and so a lot of the stuff that he's researched, which is
Yeah.
really phenomenal. Um,
Taking a step back, you mentioned with Ted, you mentioned this a lot of things, but one thing that I really want to speak to is you mentioned with Ted, like they speak to like this almost like a collective voice. So they're just kind of like a bullhorn for whatever a lot of people are thinking, which yeah is totally fucking opposite what I want to do with the company and what matters to me in life. But really, what I think what distinguishes the 21 Convention from TED is that I, through the company, I want to change the course of history for the whole world in the ways I know how, in the best ways I can. And that is at the beating heart in many ways of what I'm doing. And with what they're doing, they're not. They're just like a mirror of whatever is going on. There's no real direction there or like drive to do things that are in any way in conflict with what's like currently the consensus, which I don't have any, fuck the consensus. I don't care. I care
yeah,
about what's right. If there's a consensus for that, great. If there's not, that fucking, it's irrelevant both ways to me.
yeah.
I care about what's right and what's true and what reflects reality.
What's
And
right?
I want to hit that no matter what.
Like, ideals shouldn't have a boundary or a regulation or a template to fit, and that's what I see a lot happening with people's messages. It really is upsetting. I mean, even with
Yeah.
dating, I've been like, man, authenticity is a key thing. Your identity is a key thing. Integrity. These words now get misused terribly in
Oh
that
yeah.
entire world, and in not just dating. I mean, when it comes to health or whatever, I heard this. Uh, these guys selling their fitness thing at a coffee shop in Austin, and they were just talking to a potential client, and they were, it was like, no man, this is like how you treat and respect your body, and they were saying stuff that I know from my workout path is probably not the best way to go, you
Bunch of
know.
nonsense.
So it's really terrible when you hear that, and so the
Yeah.
voice when you're playing to a culture, you're playing to an ideal that a culture can grab onto, you automatically limit your self-expression, and that's something that
Well, what they're doing is like it's like the YouTube fitness channels. Like I
yeah,
don't want to pick on them, but whoever, the Body Rocks, the Mike Changs, or
yeah,
whatever the fuck they're doing, Tony Hortons or whatever. All they're doing is they're just looking at the mainstream consensus of what people think about exercise, and they're just like mind vomiting it, regurgitating it back at people's faces, what they
yeah,
already thought was true, and they slap on some big muscles or big tits or whatever sells it, and then they make all this money, but it's all this short-term like circle jerk nonsense. None of it makes any sense. It's not going anywhere. They're not creating companies that are going to last. They're not doing anything productive for the world around them or themselves. It's just endless crap. And whether it's in a coffee shop, dude, if someone just regurgitating out what they already think is true based on what their other people told them, or they have a YouTube channel, it's the same thing.
man,
Or if it's a TED or whatever.
there's a guy who is a pretty good friend of mine. And he also is part of our mastermind group, which massively influences TSL. I mean, it's basically the government of TSL. And he basically, he'll say, he's like, man, with fitness, there's so much shit out there that I don't know if it actually increases lifespan, happiness, or the overall health of the people.
Not at all.
You know,
Most
I mean,
of it doesn't.
it's just there's so many people that have been doing it for so long, you know, like 50, 60 years where fitness has been a big phenomenon. And there's proof that of what's changed and what hasn't. And you know, people buy into it, you know, so much it just it gets crazy. So, but I know there's a lot of stuff we could probably talk about. We're like way it's like an hour and 40 minutes. Jesus, man, probably might even divide it up or show some teasers. I want to ask
Hey,
you one.
let's release it in 10 parts and release it once a day. And
How does that
Mr.
do?
Val.
How does that do?
It's built a booming business, man.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, dude.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's cool,
Yeah,
man. I'm glad that worked. I would never. I would think it's so much easier to watch the entire thing. But
it is. But
but
you know,
that's
just
the
like
that gets them in the door, huh?
yeah, you know, if you watch a TV show, man, would you watch it all at once when it came out, or would you watch it as it came out, you know, once a week or once a day? You'd probably watch it as fast as you could, but that might not be, you know, if it's 24 episodes, you're not going to watch that straight through out of a marathon.
I may
It's
have to
really, it's
copy
really
you.
rare. Yeah,
I
you
may have to
should, man,
copy you.
dude, flood YouTube with as much content as you can. Just beat the whole world over the head with the knowledge hammer until they get
Yeah,
it. And if they don't, fuck them. They'll figure
man.
something else out.
You to me, a guy with a lot of integrity, I respect. I look back, like when I'm going, like, man, I want to change something in my business. As I've said, I think back towards you. You are the dude that nobody hears that has one of the biggest voices in the world from men. And for yourself, if you accomplish everything in your life, whatever, you project yourself out in the future and you think, man, I did it. I did everything that I've done. What would be a nice consolidated message that you could give to your audience out there? You're doing it every day with your channel, but what is the one thing Anthony Johnson would want to communicate to people out there in the world?
Just thought of this off the top of my head, so we'll see if I've had the same message in 50 years. Live the highest vision of your own life. Period. Live your life and love it as high as you can, as best you can, all the time, every day, for the entirety of your life. You only have one life. You're not going to get another one. Live it. And you don't have to live it, but you ought to live it, and you ought to realize that and embrace it. And you know, again, I mentioned the highest vision. That is important as well to that sentence. If it's not the highest vision and you're just going through life like sleepwalking or like in this flatline kind of zombie sense or zombie state, there's no meaning to it, and you're going to die, I think, unhappy. But if you pursue that highest vision in your own life and you pursue the best within yourself and you bring out that best self, I think you're going to live an amazing life. Whether you die at 22 like my friend or you live to be 122 or whatever it is, pursue that and don't ever give up on it or compromise on it.
And you, this massively successful dude, you're married, you got this awesome convention, connections with people
I am married
internationally.
now. That's right.
We didn't even talk about that, man. We should
Yeah.
have next time. But seriously,
On the
should.
TSL podcast. Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. Yeah. I put a lot of thought into it.
Man,
So,
what is it that you live for?
me?
Yeah, what are the things that you live for?
Well, it's explicitly I live for my own sake. I live for my own self. I like actually what Greg says about, in contrast to what Ayn Rand wrote about this. Greg Swan specifically speaks to loving yourself and living for your own self, not not living for others, which is putting it like in a negative sense. Like I don't live for other people. That is true, but more importantly, I live for myself. But you mean like more specific values or specific
Sure, sure.
activities or
Yeah, whatever it
I
is.
I uh
When I say life and your
uh,
decisions in life, what
yeah,
comes
yeah,
into
yeah.
mind?
I like something that I'll steal from Rand. She said once that she'd be willing to die for her philosophy, but she would much rather live for it. And I feel the same way about the 21 Convention. I would die for it, honestly, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because I'd much rather live for it. That's the harder thing to do. It's not to throw everything away that I have for the company. It's to live with it and for it and to make it into the best it can be by bringing out the best of myself as well. So they're very intertwined for me and they're very tightly knit. And yeah, that's super, 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 super important to me. This company, as you know, just like your company, it's not just something I do or something you do. It is like a paramount importance to me in life.
Yeah, man.
Um, and it's interesting too because I started as a kid and I've never done anything else really. But even so, I think I made the right call when I was young, and I made the right call sticking with it. And going forward, as far as I can see in the future, I'm making the right call sticking with it and building it into the best it can be, the highest it can be, and the biggest it can be without compromising on itself. I don't have some interest in running. I don't have any interest in running a large company that has like thousands of employees, but I do want to build the biggest business I can while keeping it lean and keeping it tight and keeping it focused. And whether that means 5 people or 20 people, or it doesn't matter how many employees, as long as I can maintain that without compromising, that's what matters to me. Beyond that, I have a cat I love, a duck, 2 chickens, a wife. And I love video games. I don't write about this a lot. I do have a small blog for it, but I think video games are really a wonderful expression of art and of human life and creativity. It's a really huge, complex synthesis of it. I'm serious. This is important to
Yeah,
me.
I know you're never
Yeah,
not serious, dude.
yeah. I don't know how not to be serious. You're the same way though, man. Marilee says you and I are a lot alike, especially the way we laugh and the way we're like kids. Like I don't. I'm super serious, but I don't take things that other people take seriously seriously. I don't take someone standing in my way for achieving a value as something serious. To me, it's like when someone contacts me about the convention and how it's a dating convention or some shit. Like I don't even. Yeah, I don't take it seriously because it's not a serious matter. I laugh at it if it's accusatory or insulting or offensive or something like that.
Man.
So yeah, that's that. I don't know if that's. I love a
How's
lot of. There's nothing I do. I think that I don't. Even if I'm going through sequences of what's important to me in life. So you'll see me blog about fitness or about health or about nutrition or about philosophy or about love or whatever. These things are all really, really important to me, and I typically don't take on. I don't learn about a subject unless I end up. Well, if I end up like caring about it, that's different. But I don't take time and invest myself in a subject unless I can see with some level of certainty, significant level of certainty, that I really am going to care about it. I really do care about it right now, and that it's going to be fruitful and worthwhile to pursue learning about it and finding out what truths can be found in that specific field, whether that's dating or health or philosophy or love or relationships or whatever, or business or entrepreneurship or self-defense. Self-defense is one that's on the back burner. I still got to get into that more. I don't actually know a whole lot about it, but I
man,
think I know people who do
let me tell
distantly.
you, like Ed Aiken
I
developing
know.
like we recorded some stuff the other man. Okay, so there's martial artists on how to fight. Then there's martial artists who've been in like 20 fights with like two like where people are trying to kill them with like knives, like bats, whatever crazy stuff. Drug deals
Yeah,
gone bad, not because of him, but because of some of the situations that his instructor put him in. I mean, he trained under Paul Vunak, who trained SEAL Team
yeah,
Six, and but the stuff that he was showing, it's in situations that you get in when you're in a street fight. If you end up on the ground, if you're standing, if somebody approaches you with some type of force, gun, weapon, whatever. I mean, it is crazy. It is crazy stuff that he was showing that is it's like you will not learn in a jujitsu class or a kickboxing class, but if you have a background
yeah.
in those things, it will help you phenomenally. I mean, it was nuts. The guy's trained with so many people, and like I said, Bravo and I, Steve, will talk
Oh
about
yeah,
a lot of this stuff too. There's just the difference with Ed, man. There's you know, Bravo attends a lot of conferences and uh, works with some of the greatest fighter type self-defense guys, tactical guys. There's a big difference with guys who have repetitiously been in environments where they were, threatened, man. They had to get out. You had
Yeah.
to, or you got, and he says even sometimes he's like, man, sometimes you couldn't win and you had to figure out the best way to submit to get out. When there's a bunch of guns pointed at you,
Yeah.
think about that. You're 20 years old. That's how he learned. 20 to like 30, he learned under this crazy dude who
Yeah.
put him in these situations. And I mean, it's just cool.
I do want to immerse myself in it and learn more about it. And when that happens, you'll see more self-defense speakers come to the convention.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you and I'll talk to Ed and I want to find more guys that are really the top of their game in that field.
Yeah, talk to
I think
Steve too. Bravo.
Oh, I meant you. But yeah, Steve, yeah, exactly. He was the first speaker who spoke on self-defense.
Yeah.
He was he got my foot in the door with it, so to speak, and now we had Ed. And we'll have more in the future as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something I still don't know enough about it to where I can invite like a handful of speakers to speak on it. Like
And
when we get in there.
And even all the like survivalist guys. I mean, they get pretty ridiculous, but there's a lot of great information. There's a guy I did a podcast with 2020. He's an amazing dude. He lives in Melbourne. He's an American, but he studied all this Native American stuff and learned how to trap and live off. Like, it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Learned how to trap and live off the land and like all sorts of different situations. He mainly did it for learning the philosophy of, certain tribes and whatnot. But I mean, survival skills, it's some pretty off the hook stuff. So
and
cool.
it could be important at any minute. Most survival people are in like, they think about collapse scenarios and what's going to happen. And a lot of the stuff people don't realize, just because it's not happening doesn't mean it couldn't happen tomorrow. You don't fucking know.
Yeah,
people don't take things into consideration like that. Random events.
The other thing that I'd say too is just, man, it's just a cool guy thing to know, and it makes you feel good about who you are. What's up, Marilee?
Marilee's coming in there.
That's all right. We should wrap it up. Hey, Anthony Johnson, kick-ass time, and I guess we'll have you on again just to talk about other stuff, because there were a lot of things that flagged up in my mind that.
I should tell some. Give me 5 seconds here. The tickets they're going on sale in a few days. So this will be out in a few days, and then the tickets will be up like right after that. So people who want to come to the 21 convention, get tickets now. Underneath the video, there'll be a link somewhere I'll put and whatever. They're going to sell out, I believe. There's only 55, so it's going to go out to like 50,000 people plus.
And there'll be an early bird, right?
That is the early bird ticket. Yeah, that's why they should buy in advance as well. They get like 30% off approximately.
It's a lot. It's a good.
And that's only for like the first 5 days. The ticket's going to be on sale, and then after that, it goes back to normal price.
Ooh.
So full pop. And then in the future they can buy tickets again. But if they don't sell out right away, I don't know if they will right away. But if they don't, they can buy tickets in the future. But they'll probably be at full price. The sales will be pretty rare, like once every 2 months maybe. So you have to really watch it like a hawk to, which you can if you want, and then you get a discount. But the best discount, the best price is always day one. So it's like a pre-order, like on a game. Talk about video games. Pre-order on a game. Well, video games, the prices go down. The tickets, they don't. They go up. So buy now.
As they should. As they should.
Yeah, the event gets closer, so tickets prices will go up, and I think they'll run out at some point. I'd be surprised if they didn't. So we'll see if I'm surprised or if what I think is going to happen is going to happen. So it's been great being on here too, man. Just wanted to say.
Yeah. Man, we'll have to do it again and all that sort of stuff. And you got so much to say. I think the more people can get to know you, the better, because they see the speaker up there, but they don't know the guy that has truly shaped and cultivated it, and orchestrated this whole movement, which is very, very cool.
Thanks. And I completely agree. I love what I do. I love what you do too, man. That's why I like being on here. And I watch what you do all the time. I don't tell you this, but when you send out emails and stuff, I usually take a look at them and your site, and I look at what you do. And it's great. Just like with the sales stuff we've been talking about.
Man, it's tough. It's tough.
There's not a lot of people in our industries that do really good stuff. It's usually like low quality crap.
Yeah.
So there isn't a lot to look at, but you are definitely a person to look at.
Yeah, it's tough, man. And that's one of the things is like, again, that's why I go back to you. It's like you've number one stayed in business. You've maintained integrity. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's rare too. In any business, people, sell out all the time, which just disgusts me.
That's terrible. It's terrible. It pisses me off. Why can't you? Why can't you have your ideal and your vision and be
Yeah.
successful? Why does everybody think you need to throw that under the bus for
Yep.
a couple minutes of success that isn't even you? People do that with
Yeah.
their dating life. People do that with their business. People do that with
Yep.
every freaking choice that they make. And
They
it's
throw it all
terrible.
away. I know.
Man, hold
It's
out
tragic.
and be
It's
yourself
tragic.
and learn how to be yourself better.
Find the hero in your own soul.
There you go. All right, man. I'm going to cut it, but it was bad to the bone.
Peace.